What's up, Benji?
What's going on, dude?
Good to see you.
You too. Yeah, thanks for organizing this.
Of course.
Benji, nice to meet you. I'm David.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, don't get too excited.
What's going on with Kara? Ben, where are you right now?
I'm here in Manhattan at home. What about you guys?
Got it. I'm in Long Island.
That's cool.
Little bougie, but I am also at home here in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
Hey, Kara.
Hey guys, how are you?
Adult
see
Kara
you.
Solomon, what's up?
Been a while, right?
I know. I was thinking about it, and it's like last time I saw you might have been at Emmanuel on a Wednesday night.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's been a long time.
That's
Good
funny.
space. I love it.
Nat Palmer, are you in here?
I'm in here, man.
Matt,
Let me see your face.
show us.
Look at that.
Amazing.
Oh my
I gotta
god.
get the right angle.
I love those shades.
Yeah, you like this?
Um,
Last time I saw you, Matt, was at the Westview baseball fields.
I know. We're getting hot dogs.
this is
Amazing.
exciting.
I know.
All right, so I'm going to kick it off.
Kick it
And
off.
so we only have 40 minutes. We probably only have a 38 minutes starting from now because the 40-minute rule. So we'll just start it off, all right? So ready? Here we go. Welcome to Hacking the Hustle. This is your host, Benji Sklar. I'm really excited to have David Wyckoff of Cisco and Kara Fellerman of Resi on the show today. What's going on, everyone?
What's up?
So really, I just want to start it off. The theme of the show today, of the discussion, is about how the restaurant industry has been impacted by coronavirus and how your companies are going to adapt and pivot to what lies ahead. So I'd like to just start off with Kara. What is Resi? What does it mean to be the director of inside sales? And what are you doing to adapt to what's going on right now in the world?
Definitely. So for those that don't know Resi, and if you don't, you should download the app. We're an online reservation system, but we really focus on hospitality first and providing a CRM for our restaurants to be more successful. So what have we been doing to adapt? We've done a lot. We're really thinking about it as how do we support our restaurant partners today? The restaurant industry is definitely the hardest hit due to COVID. And we want to make sure that we've always had our restaurants back. So we've had it, they're back since we existed 6 years ago, and we have it today. So one of the things that we did right off the bat was we actually turned off billing for all of our restaurants. We're international. We have thousands of restaurants. And the right decision was, you know what, we should not be charging them right now. We can still provide value. So we've actually turned off billing for the first 2 months, and we'll assess as things, change.
Wow, that's incredible.
Very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah. And Dave, what about you with Cisco?
So I work for Cisco. We're really Cisco Labs. So Cisco Labs is like the technology suite that Cisco offers to its customers in addition to food. And so for me, I offer a system called Cake. It's point of sale. And we basically help operators solve complex problems using, in layman's terms, it's the credit card machine, but it does a lot more than that. So my job is to virtually consult them day in and day out, let them know how they can improve their business practices using our technology, and ideally just sell it to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Kara and I kind of share the same, because you guys, are you owned by Amex right now?
We just got acquired by Amex. The deal closed actually a year ago next week. So I officially work for Amex now.
Good. Lucky. So we were a startup as well. And what sucks is that you're seeing so many of these new like privately owned startup companies just going bankrupt because they don't have the blanket or the umbrella of like a massive corporate company like we do.
Correct.
And it's crazy, Cisco, so I didn't know this, 62% we're the biggest food supplier of restaurants in North America. 62% of our business was restaurants. Now we partnered with like Kroger, I think it is, and we have 30,000 trucks. So they're shifting and starting to deliver to like restaurants, and they're giving so much food to people that need it. It's pretty cool to just see how they're doing outreach to the communities and helping them out.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a question. What are ways to support restaurants right now?
Oh, I love this question. I think David and I are probably going to have very similar answers as to how you could support restaurants. I'm based in New York, so it's a little bit of a different situation. You can't like hop in a car and drive somewhere. I haven't been on a subway or an Uber in over a month. I'm walking if I go anywhere. But the obvious things, restaurants need capital today to keep their lights on. So anything you can do to put money in their pocket, buy gift cards for the future, order takeout and delivery. I would definitely emphasize anyone listening that if you are going to do delivery, please go directly to the restaurant's website. That way, if they're using a third-party merchant, it's going to cost them a ton of money. It's really hurting them. They're like, oh, go to Uber Eats, go to DoorDash, Seamless. They're really easy for the consumer, but it's actually really hurting the restaurant. So if you can go to their website and directly order from them, it's a better move. But yeah, gift cards, writing good reviews on Yelp and Google, like that's such an easy thing. It doesn't cost any money. But when people do go back out to eat, they're people that are Yelpers. They're still going to look on Yelp. So if you can provide some positive feedback to a restaurant, those are just 3 things that come to my mind.
Yeah,
really good points.
You're not wrong. It's like people don't realize that being a restaurant owner 20 years ago, being a restaurant owner today, I could single-handedly fuck your new restaurant if you're an independent owner by writing a bad review. I've never eaten there. I have some like vendetta against you from 10 years ago. This restaurant sucks. Don't go there. And people are going to look at that because it's Yelp, right? So gift cards is another big one because that's like immediate profit for restaurants. I'm like a little bit weary of the third-party delivery apps. I use them a lot. They are super expensive for restaurants, but the problem is now, and what we're seeing with a lot of these larger restaurants in California is that they're going through these crazy measures to make sure that their kitchen is like a lab, right? Everyone is sanitizing, gloves, masks, and then a person who knows where that person's been earlier that day rolls up in their car, walks into the restaurant, and just grabs it with their bare hand and no mask, and then gives it to the person. And it's just like, I think what a lot of restaurants are going to have to start incorporating later on is that you'll need your own delivery drivers, and like you'll need your own like separate menus for pickup and takeout, because a lot of these newer large scale restaurants, a lot of the people that Resi probably works with, that we work with as well, they don't do online ordering. They're destination spots. It's like Smith & Wolinski's isn't going to be like, come order pickup from us. It's like, no, come have an $80 bottle of wine and like a couple steaks. So fuck, I have no idea where this is going to be. Restaurants are going to be fine because it's just like, it's an institution, right? Let's go get a drink. Let's go get a cup of coffee or a bite to eat. But it's going to be like a long time coming to see where this all ends up. It'll be a couple of years before it's back to normal, I think.
Another thing to add in a way you could support a restaurant is a lot of the industry is doing GoFundMe's directly to support their employers, because a lot of the time that they had to furlough or lay off completely their staff, they also now need to supply groceries for their, some restaurants are supplying groceries for their staff that they laid off. Some are just trying to keep their, they're furloughing them so they can pay for their insurance, like large hospitality groups. So if you can go directly to GoFundMe, I would say, I don't want to throw a stat out there, but a lot of the restaurants that I support and I personally go to have GoFundMes, and it's pushing on Instagram pretty hard.
What are other creative ways restaurants have adapted right now with the coronavirus? And Ben, Matt, Dylan, feel free to chime in as well.
David, if you want to start, I feel like I am on every news publication possible and just like geeking out on all the cool, innovative things that restaurateurs are figuring out. But I'll let you guys speak and then I can chime in if it's not covered.
No, it's cool. And you'll probably have more thoughts on this than me. I just think that for a lot of restaurants right now, the supply chain is all getting disrupted. So you had mentioned this, but a lot of them really are going towards like selling their wholesale supplies as groceries, which I thought was really interesting. I think we're too early on to understand what it's going to have to look like afterwards. So in terms of like innovative ways, I think everyone's just trying to survive at this point. Kara, you might have more insight on this than I do.
Well, I think that, everyone is definitely in survival mode. Some restaurants are just completely offline, and a lot of them have been creative and said, okay, well, we have a brand behind us, right? So like John and Vinny's in LA has, a wait list months out, and they have a huge cult following for their pizzas and pastas. So they're actually doing a pizza kit to go, where they pre-make the dough, they have all the sauces, and then you just get delivery and you actually make the pie at home, right? So you're bringing the experience and the brand of John and Vinny's into your home. Chris Shepard in Houston, he is selling his pre-made meals at HEB. And that's pretty awesome because everyone loves Chris Shepard in Houston. To be able to say, I'm going to the grocery store because I'm making food at home. Oh, I'm going to treat myself and have a pre-made, Wagyu beef burger is pretty cool. So I think delivery and in-home experiences have been cool. Seeing chefs like Chris Shepard. What is something else I saw? I mean, I follow Thomas Keller, and he does an Insta story live every night of him cooking. And he'll say like, oh, we serve this at Bouchon. We serve this at this restaurant. It's just ways for people to keep up with the brand. But that's talking about like the top 20% of the market of the high-end destinations. What I live above a restaurant in Manhattan, and it's a Mexican restaurant, and they are doing to-go alcohol. It's very cheap. And you have to order food, but like I can order tacos, and they have a separate takeout menu, but I can pick up a michelada. And that's not something I would make. I could make a martini at home, but a michelada is kind of fun. And they're also teaming up with a company in Mexico for Cinco de Mayo. If you want to buy like a mortar to make your own guacamole, they're going to be selling that. So they're thinking of ways to, monetize their brand instead of just food.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. All right, so let's turn the page. Beyond restaurants, what have you seen tech companies do to evolve and stay in business?
Like restaurant tech companies or just tech
SaaS companies that are in the technology sector? Because you're both obviously tech companies in the restaurant industry, but as a whole, what have you seen? Any of your friends or any companies on the news that are doing interesting things that other people would like to know about?
I have a lot of food tech examples, but I think that everyone's in this weird situation where your business is either thriving because you have a problem that you're solving for a company, or you are going to be looked down upon if you're selling because it's insensitive, and it is, right? Like you have to be very empathetic if you're asking for anything today. So there's certain businesses like Slice is a anti-third party pizza delivery company, and they're crushing it, right? Because everyone's ordering in pizza, but they didn't want to just capitalize on ordering pizza for themselves. So they have this thing called Pizza versus the Pandemic. And every pizza you order is donating a slice to a hospital, right? So they're like capitalizing on this wave of people ordering pizza, but actually doing good. I feel like a lot of businesses that are in a position that people are buying, they're actually leaning in on the philanthropic side and like being good to the community, whether it's giving back money or food or just people are coming together and they care.
Yeah, a good. Oh, sorry. Do you mind if I mention an example?
Please.
Like, for example, Sauce Pizzeria here in New York, they have a couple locations, East Village, Lower East Side. And, they were giving out a bunch of free pizza pies. And the landlord of the building was so touched by it that he let him, he's like, don't pay rent for a few months. So that was kind of as Danny Meyer from Youth Hospitality Group calls it, kind of a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
So people are everybody's kind of getting involved and pitching in and helping out. So.
Totally. And I think people are cutting costs, like free trials or lowering costs. But that's assuming those companies haven't had to furlough and haven't had to lay off. So David mentioned, like, if you're backed by a large company, it's a very different ballgame than if you're a startup Series A funded or was planning on raising a Series B Q1, Q2.
What do you think is the timeline for when people start going back to restaurants in New York City and Los Angeles? Like, obviously no one knows, but what are your gut feelings?
I constantly am asked this question, and I fill out these surveys every week from other, sales organizations I belong to. I think the question is not when, but how.
Yep.
It's not when are people going to go back to restaurants, it's how are they going to go back to restaurants. I just read an article, it was in the LA Times today, that they're going to have 50% occupancy rules. And I think it's going to be state or citywide. But, I don't anticipate restaurants having 100% of their seats filled when things open. I imagine people are going to sit 6 feet apart, like per table. Whereas Manhattan, people shove you into one tiny spot. You know, and some of the best restaurants in Venice do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And Marco, who's my coworker, he's on this chat right now. He says he's based in Hong Kong right now, and he says that restaurants are being filled, but they have to keep the 6 distance rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't.
Yeah, restaurants. We're lucky here that the government never. Well, I wasn't here for it. This is only what I was told. I only came a couple of weeks ago, but restaurants were open here the whole time, and the government just enforced the rule that they had to sit 6 feet apart, and then they send in the cops to make sure that that rule is enforced. But the restaurants can keep going, and it took about 2 months for things to return to normal, and so people are actually going to restaurants again, and they're seeing people wait outside. The waiting and the way that they interact at a restaurant has not changed. So waiting, instead of waiting at a bar next door or something like that, the restaurant will start serving you and offering you little snacks at a cheaper cost outside to keep you waiting. So just doing anything to incentivize you to stay to ultimately dine at the restaurant. So I think restaurants are getting creative on how they can get people to wait if they don't have enough places. Like in New York, for example, right? A lot of the best places are going to be some tiny hole in the wall that can't sit more than 6 people. And a 6-foot rule there is quite challenging. And so you're going to have to somehow find ways to keep people waiting and just, you know, have one table at a time or whatever it is. But yeah, it's interesting to see that it comes back, but it's not going to be normal for a while. So people are going out again, but there's a new normal and people are sort of figuring that out.
Totally. And I think you also have to think about, you know, the people that lost their jobs, right? You know, not only is there like a pandemic in the food space, but there's just a pandemic overall. And so I'm also curious, you know, when restaurants are open, like, are people going to have the extra spending money? You know, like maybe it might be like when you were a child, going to the movies was this like extravagant thing. It was like really special. It might be that, or it might be like, I need social interaction. I'm so sick of cooking. I want to eat out every night. It could go any way, but I don't think that dining out's ever going to go away. I don't think people are going to be scared of going out to dinner eventually, because you can't replace the ambiance and the feeling being in a restaurant. It's not replaceable no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus right now, what we sell, it's like online ordering is part of that whole service. And our whole thing has been, we need to get as many people into online ordering as we can, setting them up. And something we found is that on Fridays and Saturdays, like, we're such creatures of habit, online ordering went 3 times what it does on like a typical week for us. Meaning people are still just like, okay, it's the end of the week. I've been at home. I haven't been working. Like, I don't have a job, but I'm still going to eat out Friday and Saturday. So like, yeah, I think you just said it. No one's going to stop dining out. It's just, what is dining out going to look like in like a year? It's going to be weird.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is an opportunity out of all of this? Like, what do you think if you were an investor considering investing in a restaurant or this industry, or someone who, like Dylan, who's a senior in college, who wants to go work in the restaurant industry? How would you be thinking about pursuing that kind of opportunity?
So one thing that I'm big on is ghost kitchens.
Me too.
I
think it's the future.
Yeah, I think they're going to completely take over. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like, if you don't want to invest in an entire brick and mortar establishment, there's going to be like these massive facilities that have like these little 600 square foot kitchens. They already exist. And basically, if you're a restaurant owner, it's like, I specialize in meatball subs. Great, dude. Go rent out this ghost kitchen for X amount of money for the month. Like, it's super inexpensive. And we'll just have drivers come to and from, like from Uber Eats, delivery drivers, whatever, and bring it to you. Mm-hmm. I'm high on that. I think that's the future, personally.
Totally.
I saw Travis Kalanick, he founder of Uber. I know he's in that business.
Yeah, so Uber Eats is kind of the starter of the ghost kitchen world, because sometimes if you're on Uber Eats or even on Seamless, if you look up a restaurant and you try to Google it, sometimes you can't find it. Because the reality is there could be one kitchen cooking up Mexican food, Indian food, and Chinese food. It's all the same kitchen, because the amount of money you spend in rent in Manhattan, if you're going to be a primarily, to go order, it just financially doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. I know Ben has a question.
Yeah, so my question is kind of related to this. So obviously you have ghost kitchens, people are gonna be doing food trucks, food carts, I think that'll become more prevalent. But what do you think about food halls and food courts? Do you think people will be afraid to go because they're so crowded, number one? And two, obviously it's made up a bunch of individual vendors and they may not be able to pay the rent and just upkeep. What are your thoughts on those types of businesses?
I think that the food halls are definitely a trend, right? Like you've seen that Chelsea Market in Manhattan has been around for many years.
Mhm.
What is it in Atlanta? Ponce Market in Atlanta is another huge food hall. I was just in Chicago and there's a food hall downtown. They're there. I don't think they're going anywhere, but I think they're really just a test kitchen to figure out if you have the demand and notoriety behind you to actually start a restaurant. Most people that go into a food hall are not thinking like, oh, this is my end all dream. It's like, let's test the waters. And this is like a low financial risk compared to opening a restaurant. Or it's the reverse, which is I have a great established restaurant like Russ and Daughters in Manhattan, and I go to the Brooklyn Navy Yard because it's an output. So you're either
Yeah,
seeing one or the other. You're not really seeing like it's either on the spectrum.
for
So I don't
sure.
think it's gonna go away.
Yeah. I think the
Dylan has a question.
do it, Dylan.
Actually, all of my questions have already been asked. This has been very insightful. I appreciate the fact that this was posted on LinkedIn and I had the ability to come in and listen on this session. Sorry, I've been a little bit shy letting the experts speak. I am a soon-to-be graduate from the University of Wisconsin and was hoping to enter the restaurant software industry. But my plans have been altered, of course, due to the current situation. So I thought that this seminar would be a great way for me to learn how things may adapt going forward. With ghost kitchens, do you think that there may be a opportunity for more high-end restaurants to also play into this new trend? For example, I live in Miami, so I know Michael Schwartz. He opens Schwartz's Deli, which I find interesting. It's a ghost kitchen, and all of his restaurant concepts have been very famous for their ambiance and things way beyond just the food. So I find that interesting and definitely a stray away from the typical norm of what you see with ghost kitchens.
Yeah, I think that what you're going to see is, and what we've already seen is that restaurants are now looking at innovative ways to diversify their revenue streams and not putting all their eggs in one basket, right? You've seen that over the last 5 years with delivery and takeout, right? That was not, it was really a New York City thing. And then all of a sudden there's Favor and then there's Uber Eats and there's, Caviar and Grubhub and Chow Now, like there's a million of them now. So that was like stage one of diversifying the type of revenue streams. And now you're seeing these like meal kits.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think there is an opportunity. It's just going to say like, at the end of the day, like David knows this better than anyone else. Like it's all about the small margins that a restaurant operates on and like how to optimize it.
Mhm.
Like if they're operating on like such small margins that if it makes sense, a restaurateur is going to say, let's try it. If financially it doesn't make sense, then you can't do it. And I think that's how a lot of restaurateurs are going to have to make decisions. And a lot of people at restaurateurs are creative and exciting and, not always like business first. It's really like, I love to cook. I have this great, recipe and this is my life and my livelihood. And there's going to have to, I think mixing those two are going to have to be a little bit more married.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Dylan, real quick, I think it's the perfect time to be getting into restaurant tech. Like the problem with the restaurant industry is it moves so slowly, because you have these like older operators that like, we opened up a restaurant in Arkansas in the 80s and we used the cash register. It's like, you want me to use online ordering? Fuck you. That's just not their style.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have like this entire thing that's happening and everything's closing down. The tech companies are going to rebuild how restaurants are run. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to get into it and just, kind of help the movement. Because, things like, think about like EMV, like shipping a card, people aren't going to accept cash anymore. Right? I don't want to touch that $20 bill. Like, where was that? Yeah, so I do think it's a good time to be getting into restaurant tech. I know it's rough right now, but once it gets like rebuilt and people start buying up these old restaurants for pennies on the dollar, they're gonna need this stuff, and that's when companies like Resi and Cake are gonna
Mhm.
profit from it.
Thank you. I appreciate the words of encouragement.
Yes, I'm your biggest fan.
Awesome, guys. Well, but before I let you go, this has been very educational for me, and I'm sure the people who are going to be listening. So, Kara, what I'd like to ask you: what are your last words? What are some things you'd like to say?
I would say that I've taken this opportunity with a lot of the restaurants, being closed and not able to dine out, to really explore my chef skills. So I've been trying to cook a really fun dish every week that I've never done on my own. So like last week was lamb. I made shrimp etouffee, homemade dumplings. It's been fun, but I am counting down the day that I can go into some of my favorite restaurants in Manhattan and just sit down and have a great meal. And so fantasizing of that idea is kind of getting me through this, living in a tiny apartment in Manhattan when things are pretty sad. I'm looking forward to the day that I can go support my favorite restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. And you, David, got anything last words?
I've loved to have this opportunity to not shave.
Same.
It's been really nice. Also, just like maybe I won't shower today or like go see anybody. But another thing that I've realized is that I'm really good at talking to inanimate objects, and I'm not sure if that was a skill that I acquired before or after COVID hit. But I had a great talk with my refrigerator the other day. He was having a rough day, but desk was having a good day. So biggest takeaway from all this is the ability to make conversation with things that don't talk or have a conversation.
You're really good at that one.
Yeah, I'm great.
Amazing.
This has been so fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, David, Ben, Dylan, Matt, Marco. And I'll be posting this. You'll see this, and I hope to see you all soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Guys.
See you soon as well, everybody. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Later.
See y'all.